Welcome back to the Photography Show TV studio, where I am joined by wildlife filmmaker, presenter, RTS award winner. It's Gordon Buchanan, everybody.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing, all right?
Yeah, very good, thanks, very good.
Super. So, from growing up on the Isle of Mull to travelling around doing some amazing work with Nick Gordon, before then embarking on your own projects like Tribes, Big Cat Diary, and pretty much Any Animals and Me. You go to some extraordinary lengths to tell your stories, including, potential personal peril. Tell me about the ice cube and the polar bear and Me story.
With most wild animals, trying to kind of close that distance to them when you're trying to film them or record their behaviour, that's what's important. And most animals sort of like to keep their distance from you, but there are a few exceptions, and polar bears are one of those exceptions to the rule, where they're quite keen to get close to you, very close, or close enough to eat you. And before we went to the Arctic, this was back in 2012, because of the obvious danger, not of every polar bear, but some will sort of see us as food. So we decided to build this polar bear proof hide that we could observe and film the polar bears from. It was originally we were going to use it at the den, so with the mother inside, so we could just sit there and not have to pull out or run away if she came out. And we used it sort of to observe polar bears over a course of months, and none of them were particularly interested. A couple of them came close enough and walked past it, but it wasn't until one particular female came. She definitely not so much interested in the ice cube, but was interested in the nice, warm, juicy thing that was inside, which was me. But I wouldn't want to repeat that. It was sort of a bit too close for comfort. You're just hoping that this bulletproof glass is definitely polar bear proof.
You had every confidence that this would...
Yes, on the record, I had every confidence that there was no way that she was going to get in.
Goodness me. And then last year, Grizzly Bears and Me for BBC Two. What is it with bears and you, Gordon?
I've been fascinated by grizzly bears. I think anyone that's sort of seen those scenes of grizzly bears feeding on salmon sort of up in Alaska and in Canada. But the first bear that I filmed properly were black bears in North America. And as I sort of got to understand them, I sort of had a real fondness for them. I wanted to sort of then tell the story of other bears, and I'd always been desperate to film polar bears. So the next time, it was the first ever time that the BBC had said, what would you like to film next? And I said, I'd love to film polar bears. So I did black bears, then polar bears, and then it just seemed like an obvious progression to try and tick my way through all of the kind of bears that there are. Because they're a fascinating animal, because you find them, they're physically all very similar, but they're so adaptable. You've got the polar bears living in the Arctic, and you've got sloth bears in Asia, you've got Himalayan black bears, so they are sort of, they're quite a diverse type of animal, and all subtly different, but on sort of basically based on that same model, which was a common ancestor that split off kind of millions of years ago. I'm
going to throw a programme idea out there for you, Gordon. BBC Children in Need. I think you need to do cuddly bears and Me.
I have floated that one out, and no one has approached me about filming Pudsey Bear.
You're present behind the camera and in front of the camera in your work, but I noticed that you've also taken to outsourcing some of your camera work as well to the animals themselves. So animals with cameras. That looked like a really interesting project.
Yeah, it was. There's a sort of a lot of the time through my work, we're working very closely with scientists that are devoting their entire life and career to a particular animal or a particular habitat. And with technology and the way that technology has moved on, there is so much more we can learn about animals these days. Things like with GPS collaring, depth meters, depth gauges you can put onto animals that kind of live in the sea. But the one big kind of missing piece of the picture is what these animals are actually seeing. What is it they're responding to? You can tell, how deep an animal dives, where it goes almost sort of every minute of every day, and how far it travels, and what it might be eating. But actually what it's seeing was a big sort of missing part of the puzzle. So we teamed up with scientists to sort of work with them for the first time, really, to see if we can use camera technology, kind of the latest camera technology, to see if it can reveal more about these animals. And every single species that we did film for the series, the scientists were kind of learning new things about an animal that they knew really quite well.
And obviously you need to do that, taking care of the animals so that it's not going to be an undue burden on them, that the animals are taken safe. And I'm sure that's very much what you were mindful to do in the show as well.
Yeah, well, that project wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago, because the technology, memory has shrunk, batteries have shrunk, and then suddenly it becomes viable. And not only have those two things shrunk, but the actual sensor quality has gone up. So you can pack into something, weighing 18 grams, a usable image. So the Meerkat cameras that we had designed, the cameras came from mobile phones, and the rest was kind of hodgepodge put together. But for the meerkats themselves, it's just like wearing a little bit of bling. It's easier with bigger animals, because bigger animals can take a bigger payload and it not affect them. So with the brown bears that we filmed in, that had our cameras in Turkey, that was quite a big device that they had on. But
but it needs to be ruggedized as well if you've got a big bear.
And they really don't know that it's there, and the kind of the footage you get, you see natural behaviour. Especially with meerkats, we were able to observe them as soon as we put them on, and in each case the animal could take it off. If it got snagged, it would just sort of automatically come off. Which was a problem for the chimpanzees, because they had to put it on themselves. So you had to give the camera to them, and they put it on, and they could take it off, which they often did, and sometimes they take it off and leave it up a tree, which is about 100 metres up.
Before we go, what's next, Gordon? Any projects coming up that you're allowed to talk about?
We've got a new series called Equator from the Air, which we filmed last year, and it is working with scientists and conservationists, environmentalists around the world, looking into how aerial technology, so fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters and drones, are helping them in the fight sort of to save habitats and species. So it's really kind of, so much of my work now is about, if not using the technology that's available these days, it's actually seeing how it can help, not just to film and photograph, but to actually, do some good and actually help protect precious and rare species and places.
Fantastic. Gordon, pleasure to
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming to the show. I hope you have a great talk this afternoon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.